David, we are streaming and we are live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. Meeting called to order. Today is Monday, March 22nd, 2021. It is now 6:02 p.m. Fiscal year 22 budget workshop via Zoom.
Councilman Lattradi,
Here.
Councilman Messia,
Here.
Councilman D'Amico,
Yeah.
Council Vice President Williamson,
Here.
Council President Gosselin. There is a quorum on record. Town manager gives
Go ahead. Sorry, Paul.
an overview of the budget process.
All right, we want to redo from last week quickly that this is the second night of reviewing and vetting the proposed fiscal 2022 budget. We completed about 10 or 12 smaller departments last week. We intend on continuing with the rest of the departments this evening. Again, I believe our department heads were considerate of the town's fiscal constraints while drafting their request that will support the continuation of services expected by our community and also providing for upgrading of some capital items necessary to provide those services safely and more efficiently. Just some key points on this budget as originally presented, even though there's been some changes since then. But since it was printed and released to the public, the total budget increase was expected at slightly above 5.4 million. That's inclusive of 2.1 in municipal expenses and 3.3 for school state aid pass-through appropriation. The levy increase was 2.01 or slightly more than 1.2 million. The estimated tax rate increase on the original proposal was 2.1%, dependent on finalized tangible annual returns that were due last week. Funds included in general government for the current collective bargaining processes. Capital expenditure request totaled 436,000. 100% of our pension ARC is included in this budget. 358,000 was included for our property reevaluation process in the next fiscal year. The tax collection rate was increased from 96.8% to 97.0%. And there initially was the proposed use of $500,000 from fund balance as a balancing mechanism. That is it.
Questions for Mark before we get started? Are we doing the Civic Center again this week? Because if so, we can let them go first.
It's not listed on the agenda.
She does a separate agenda. It's only if you have more to discuss, it was posted. Right, Laura, you posted it
Yes.
for both nights?
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe on the way that they posted on the website, they posted under Civic Center itself, not under Town Council. I couldn't find it either at first, and then I had to email her a few times, and that's where it's posted.
David, we could see your mouth, but you couldn't hear you.
Now,
That's better.
we have to do the Civic Center budget twice anyway. So if we want to, any questions for Lori on the Civic Center budget? Or Lori, do you have anything?
I did prepare just because I just wanted to go over. Again, I know it's called a budget, but it's more of a guideline. You know, there's been some misinformation from time to time. So I just want to make sure that everybody stays on the same page, you know, because I feel that it's really important that when you're speaking on a topic that you do go to the source and you do get the facts before, you know, we put them out there. Just, you know, it makes everything so much easier for everyone. You know, obviously we all know the Civic Center was set up as an enterprise, and it was set up way before most of us had already been here. So the way the enterprise is set up is that the expenses should not, well, in a good place, is not ever exceed the revenues. And, you know, right now that's where the Civic Center is. I just think that it also needs to be made very clear that on May 20th for the all-day referendum, there are no tax dollars, there's no allocated line for the Civic Center on there. So I think that people do get very confused and think that the Civic Center is part of the overall town budget and it's separate by itself. You know, last year, some modifications were made. You know, the council helped with, you know, staffing and whatnot. And I believe that's a huge contribution of why the Civic Center so far this fiscal year is able to stay in the black. At the town council meeting on March 2nd, the finance director stated the Civic Center was currently in a surplus. And when you take the expenses and you subtract them from the revenue, at that point, as of February 28th, or I think 28th or 24th, the Civic Center was $104,000 in the black. So, I mean, that's definitely a good thing. And just so that everyone can understand the change that was made, I just did a few quick numbers really quickly. You know, from last year's comparison of FY20 to this year's comparison of FY21 of just the general wages and benefits for the first 8 months. So FY20 from July to February, it was approximately $233,632. And FY21 from July to February, it's approximately $121,844. So just making that small adjustment in the staffing structure made a huge difference right there. You know, as I said before, I can always go through and give you an explanation detail of exactly what every account is. You know, I'm very on top of it. I pretty much have a spreadsheet for everything. I did this year increase the utilities guideline budget for FY22 based on, you know, just the increase of water and gas prices. You know, the elephant in the room of the major needs line for FY21 is much larger than any of us would like it to be. But in FY22, it's back to 15,000, and I don't foresee having any issue of that sort ever again. Each year I do write a business plan for the Civic Center. It's probably more for myself, but if anyone were to ever want it, I do have it upon request. I just also want to just go over the increase of revenues of the rentals for the facility, just the last few fiscal years, just so that everyone can understand that the Civic Center is finally in a place where it's able to go in the right direction. You know, I mean, the rentals are just the courts in the field house and the sheets of ice in the ice rink. And, you know, FY17, it was only $363,000 that it generated for revenue. FY18, it was $385,000. FY19, it went to $572,000. That's where I started to have a little bit more, you know, where I was able to do the rentals myself and whatnot. You know, FY20, we were at $561,000, but we did have $66,350 in cancellations due to COVID. FY21, as of the end of February, we were at $446,000 as revenue. We had an enormous amount of cancellations due to the fact that, you know, the state closes down from time to time for months on end. And, you know, for lack of better words, like, you know, we've achieved a lot for a really crappy year, and we've only had one major event. Like, I mean, on a regular year, we have so many events, events for the whole community to enjoy, and we weren't able to have any of those. I know from time to time there's administrative fees that have been brought up, and I did do some quick math to say, you know, the Civic Center uses about an hour's worth of time from various departments on an average of $75 an hour. You know, throughout a year, it would be $3,900. You know, as I stated in the last meeting, that moving forward, I will start to keep track of all the various departments and, you know, how much time spent. And next November, when I start to do the FY23 budget, I will bring, you know, maybe the second meeting in November, I'll bring forth to the council and we can figure out and see if that's something that we do want to add as a line item into the Civic Center budget. The last thing that I really want to address is, what an asset the Civic Center is for every person's community. There's so many community-based town events and school-based things that were able to take place in the Civic Center at no charge to the town or the school. And I'm not even sure that most people even understand that when you do have these events or the schools are in here, that I do need to have staff in here. I mean, every person, when we do have an event, we do need a crowd manager license. Every person on my staff is certified for that. They had to go through the Office of the State Fire Marshal. They had to take a class. I mean, some of you are aware of that certification. Each member on the staff is first aid and they're CPR certified. There's always at least one member when the school's here, there's town events, there's elections, whatnot. Every recreation league in this town utilizes it. I mean, this year we were able to get, West Warwick Soccer was able to get a winter season and West Warwick basketball. And it was a lot of moving and just trying to schedule and working with each one of the organizations to be able to do that. I mean, it was amazing. And baseball and softball have both started to come in here to get ready for their spring season. Pre-COVID, again, I'm only just touching bases on everything here, just so that people can understand how much is done here. Pre-COVID, we used to have a walking group that came in every morning and they were able to utilize it. I see them out in the community from time to time and they miss this so much. They can't wait for COVID to be over so that they can come back and, visit and walk. And all these community events that took place here, I mean, I always made sure that there was something for everyone, whether if it was the craft show, the bridal shows, the boxing, the community holiday events, the circus, wrestling, dances, elections. I mean, I know that not everybody likes any of those or, all of those, but at least there was always something for everyone to come here. The schools being able to use these buildings for gym class. I mean, the gyms are so small there, they couldn't space the kids 6 feet away from each other. So they were able to bring the kids up here. They were able to enjoy gym class. The band, they weren't able to practice. They were able to come here. They came every Friday and they played. And it was amazing that, I mean, just to see how happy the kids were that they were able to do that. Look how many people in the community got vaccinated this year just by being able to utilize the Civic Center. I'm happy that the Civic Center is able to provide at no cost to the schools, the town events, this facility during this time so that, everybody can use these. I mean, if we had to charge, just for example, I'm going to just throw out some quick numbers that, say 100 days of the school year, we charge them for 6 hours, that would be $75,000. We had 4 elections here this year. You're looking at $7,000, $8,000 for the elections and in turn, that would end up going into each individual departments. It would go into their budget if we were charging, and overall the town's budget would increase. And, that's the last thing that any of us especially me, I live in this town and I pay taxes just like everyone else. Like, I don't want that to happen at all. So I guess I'll round it up really quickly. I know I have a lot to say all the time, but I'm sure you're all very well aware that I always have a lot to say. When I took this job, my goal was, growing up in this town, whatnot, these buildings they had so much life. It fell off for a little while. There was no life in these buildings. They do have that life back in them again. I mean, I'm hoping, maybe this summer, maybe next summer, we'll get to have the carnival, the fireworks, all that back again. We'll get to have circuses and wrestling and dances and elections and, all that stuff. I just think that it's so important that, we're all part of the same team for the better good of the town. And we all want it to be an amazing place. And I think the Civic Center is a hidden asset that, we can all utilize from time to time. And as I've said before, I have an open door policy. You have any questions ever, please call me, text me, come walk in my door when you can again, when the school isn't using it, because it has to be locked during the day while the school's using it. But, I'm an extremely passionate person. And, I'm about making the facility run and stay positive. And if you live in this town, this is a positive place. There should not be anything negative said about it. And if you have a question, please ask me. All right, I'll be quiet now. I probably bored you all.
Any questions for Lori on her budget?
Oh, this was a budget question? I'm sorry, yes. Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll go on with the
Dave, I have
agenda.
one question,
Right.
just for
Right.
clarity. I'm a little confused. Because it's like Lori just said, it's an enterprise fund. If the revenue cannot meet the expenses at the end of the year by whatever number, $1, 100,000, whatever, where does the money come from to pay the bills?
Ultimately,
The
it'll
town.
probably the town, yes.
Not what, but what the town? Like what? Out of surplus and other
It runs through
departments?
No, it runs through
Due
due to
from.
due from, so
Right.
it's an accounting adjustment, so there's a line on the town that adjusts with the civic center, and when we pay bills for the civic center, it hits the due from. When we collect revenues for the civic center, it diminishes the due from. It's an accounting mechanism that tracks that. If the civic
Okay.
center actually had a surplus, had a unassigned fund balance, and they had a loss, then it would come from that first.
Okay, all right.
So I guess that to simplify that, Jason, if your question is, there is a balance on the books that the Civic Center does owe from past years. Is that correct, Kristen?
Yes,
Yes, and
That is
we
correct.
keep tally of that, and we will continue to do that. And when Lori works her magic and makes a lot of money, that will wipe that out, hopefully, right?
Yes, yes,
Correct.
definitely.
Is that a high balance? Do you know what the balance? I'm just curious. What's the balance?
and I gotta look at the audit. Just give me a couple minutes to pull it up.
It was fairly significant last time we asked, I believe. But I'm not sure that it's been added to all that much in the last several years.
No, I don't. Civic Center. So the Civic Center had a loss in 2020. Their net position is a positive $490,000, but a great deal of that is because of the assets, the building. The actual unrestricted net position is a negative $908,000.
Kristen, can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Ask a question. I'm kind of going to make a statement. So majority of that negative balance is when the town had privately rented out the facility and had to upgrade the facility in order for it to be able to open the doors. Is that correct?
Probably, yeah. I'd have to go back and look, refresh my memory on how it built along the way, but yes.
So from my understanding, just from having a lot of time on my hands and reading a lot, the building was not kept up to par when it was being rented out privately. So as the landlord, the town may have been too busy or something, or whatever it may be, to have checked on the building to keep up its landlord duties. So when the renter was evicted, they did have to put a lot of money into the building to be able to use it again.
Going back to 2018 just to see where we were at that point.
I believe it might be like 2016, maybe 2015, where it does show the major building.
And that probably, instead of taking the time to do that now, I would suggest that we maybe look at that.
Throughout the year.
Well, no, I mean, that's something that can be brought back to the council, but instead of taking everyone's time at this point to come up, get down into that nitty gritty. Yes, we probably did have to put money into it. I don't know that for sure, but that would increase the value of the asset as well. So we can have
It
that
did, yeah.
discussion Yes, so it's sort of offsetting. We did spend some money, but it would increase the value of the asset as well. So
Correct.
there is an outstanding balance. That's the reality of it. We understand that it's built up over a number of years. I don't think it's been added to significantly in the last several years, but it's something that we should look at and perhaps report out on it at another time if people agree.
Time's sake, I would say so. Any other questions for Lori? Thank you, Lori. We'll move on to the school department. Who wants to speak on behalf of the school department? We have Superintendent Tarasevich here. We have Joseph Spagner. I see there's a Steve in the audience. I'm not sure that, I think that's Steve Lawton.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'll start by speaking on behalf of the school department. Thank you, and it's good to see everybody, and happy to be here once again. On behalf of the West Warwick School Committee, I'm pleased to report that at their February meeting, they voted to approve a balanced budget for FY-22, which we present to you tonight. As always, in preparing our budget, there were 5 goals: to present a balanced budget, to support education and programming for the school department, compliance with educational mandates as well as the BEP, continued compliance with pension and OPEB contributions, and consideration of future budgets. So tonight we present a balanced budget in the amount of $63,633,484. And this reflects no increase in appropriation from the town. The FY-22 budget is balanced with an increase of 6% from FY-21 and a dollar amount of $3,387,807. Anticipated state aid, our local appropriation, and Medicaid reimbursements will support this increase. A few items that are beyond our control are salary increases in the amount of $2,500,000 at 7.4%. Contracted transportation costs, $77,000, and that's a 3% increase. Tuitions for special education placements is actually a decrease, down significantly, with a decrease of $550,000. And there's an increase in medical premiums of $292,000 at a percentage of 4.5%. Our second goal is to support education and programming in the school department. And this budget meets the requirements under all regulations, federal, state, special education, and the BEP, as well as meets state graduation requirements. We are in compliance with OPEB and pension contributions. Our state pension contribution is $666,000, which is a 17% increase. Our OPEB contribution is $28,000, and that's a 10% increase based on the actuarial valuation. And our municipal pension contribution is $57,000 at a 3% increase. And as always, we give consideration to future budgets in the upcoming years. Since March of last year, we have all been living in uncertain times due to COVID-19. The pandemic has impacted all of our lives personally and professionally, and the school department is no exception. We could not have anticipated the pandemic, nor the issues related to reopening schools in a healthy and safe manner, providing academic programming and related services to our students, and the ability to staff 3 models of instruction delivery. As you recall, this time last year, due to the uncertainty of our state aid for FY-21, our current year, we reduced our budget for this year by $1.9 million by laying off several employees in order to present a balanced budget. Fortunately, when we eventually did receive our state aid, we were able to hire all those employees back to their previous positions. We have also been fortunate in this current year that the federal government has provided COVID relief funds through the CARES and the ESSER funds, which have helped support the additional COVID-related expenses for the district this year, including but not limited to facilities rework for ventilation systems, air filtration, the addition of staff to support our 3 models of instruction delivery, and PPE, just to name a few. I would like to acknowledge Joe Spagna's efforts around the management of these funds along with our local budget and federal grants. This has not been an easy system to manage, as the additional COVID funds have stringent restrictions that require constant monitoring and balancing with our local budget. Since the submission of our first draft of our budget to the town manager in February, we have amended our original submission. With the remaining CARES and ESSER COVID relief aid that we received this year, we have been able to reduce our proposed FY-22 budget by reducing certain line items we were able to expend this year versus next year. As the school department has demonstrated over the past several years, we are committed to helping the town's fiscal recovery efforts. Our revised FY-22 budget includes a 0 increase in local appropriation from the town, and we propose level funding for FY-22. Thank you, and just let me know if you have any questions, and Joe Spagna's here as well if you have any questions for Joe.
Karen, first I want to thank you, Joe, the school committee. I know Sue St. Almon's here tonight. I think Steve Lawton is here tonight. Thank you for all the hard work that you and the school committee have done. It's been a very difficult year. I know we had the pleasure of hanging out during the summer months of the parade and having some brief discussion of how this year is going to go. And, you know, you continued to do what you had to do. And, you know, it was very surprising when we got the message. And I know Mary Beth was in the audience that night, and very, very nice surprise to hear that you guys are coming back level funded. So thank you for all the hard work.
You're welcome. We were, you know, we were pleased to be able to, you know, and again, I give Joe the credit for, you know, it's not been an easy year managing the finances because the COVID relief money, although a relief and, you know, helped us in so many ways, it really was a challenging system for him to balance and make sure we were in compliance with all of the restrictions around the grants. So to Joe's credit, we ended up where we did this year. So, you know, we were happy to be able to help the town out.
Yes, when you say I was in the audience, I was on the other side of the computer watching. I wish I had been actually in an audience. That would have been nice.
I know.
But the things that were said and it was clear. I heard a lot of, it's the right thing to do. If we don't need the money, we shouldn't take it. So people realize when we do need it, we really do need it. I sent a text message to the school committee and the superintendent saying there aren't many places where you hear messages like that, sort of only in West Warwick, and it reminds me of what a special place we live in. So you guys have been great partners, and again, big help for us to get to a balanced place that we need to be in our budget. So thank you.
Well, the town council's been a good partner for the school department for many years now. And, you know, this year just goes to show we never know what any given year is going to bring, and we never know what support we're going to need and how we're going to be able to help each other out. So we just felt like it was the right thing to do. We find ourselves in a position where we were able to, you know, ask for level funding, and we'll see what next year and the year after that brings.
So I would echo what David said. You know, thank you to you and the school committee and Karen, your team, Joe, and your entire team, right down to the teachers who have had an incredibly difficult year as well. So thank you to everyone for doing their part.
Thank you.
David, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes.
This is weird. Thank you once again. We'll move on and move on to the public library. Colin, you're on deck.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm presenting what is essentially a level funded budget from last year once the town's increase on our medical line is taken into account. The total we're requesting is less than 0.75% of the overall budget, and is close to the figure that we were appropriating from the town more than 15 years ago. As always, when the library presents its budget, I wanted to remind the council that our state funding, which represents a significant portion of our funding overall, is conditional upon maintenance of effort in regard to our appropriation from the town, and assumes at least level funding on prior years. So just very briefly, over the last year, we have worked through the pandemic by taking existing programs such as our Senior Tech Club and gaming programs online, as well as adding more digital services for our patrons and offering a greater variety of ebooks, audiobooks, and movies for all ages. We converted our summer free lunch program into a lunch to go program, and we produced and published an anthology of writing by West Warwick teens. We were one of a very small number of libraries to participate in the Governor's April 2020 Reading Challenge, and one of the first public libraries in the state to make curbside pickup of books available. We reopened to the public in early July and have remained open ever since, providing computer access by appointment, along with many of our normal library services. All of this has been done with the safety of patrons and staff foremost in our minds. Our service to the community has been recognized by the Institute of Museum and Library Services, who last week named us as a finalist for the National Medal for Museum and Library Service, the nation's highest honor given to museums and libraries. My goal is to maintain and build on that level of service, and part of meeting that goal is to hire and retain exceptional staff. I did want to mention, therefore, that my request to the town in a year's time will look to increase staff salaries to bring them closer in line with other libraries in the state, and to hire another member of staff to allow us to be open for the full 60 hours per week, as mandated by the state's Office of Library and Information Services. But for this coming fiscal year, our request reflects the library's recognition of the current challenging circumstances we find ourselves in. Thank you.
Any questions for Colin?
So,
I don't
actually,
have a
no.
question, Dave.
Yes, go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, I just like to say congratulations. This is a heck of an honor for our little town to be nationally recognized like this. So it means you're doing something right, Colin. So congratulations to staff.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, it really is a tribute to the staff here. We were surprised and excited and delighted, but really it's the staff who take the credit for bringing us to this point.
So I was actually going to say congratulations to a couple of things. Thank you for recognizing the difficulty in putting a budget together this year and asking for level funding. We appreciate that, given the maintenance of effort requirements. So we're one of 3 finalists. Who decides who the Oh, go ahead.
We're one of 15 libraries nationwide.
Oh, okay.
And they will award 3 medals.
And who decides who gets the medal?
It's decided by the Institute of Museum and Library Service in DC.
So is there any way for us to influence that, as in letter writing, is there something that we should be doing to help that effort along? It
certainly wouldn't hurt to do that. I mean, we were nominated for the award originally by Congressman Langevin, and I've spoken to him last week. I'm sure he's going to be following up. And there is a kind of social media campaign that we're doing in conjunction with the IMLS. We have a day, all the finalists have a day when resources are devoted towards them alone. And so that's something we'll be working towards. But certainly I'd be happy to send something out to the council, kind of just with some suggestions about ways in which you might support our effort. I hope everybody saw the story in the paper on Saturday, which was very nice and very comprehensive, and I think did a good job of outlining where we are. So we're very proud to be in company with these libraries throughout the country, and some of them, you know, and they're libraries of all kinds. Some are much bigger than us. I mean, one of the finalists is the Memphis Public Library, for example, which is more of a library system. So we're in good company, and it's great to get to this stage, and I hope in the second half of May we'll find ourselves as one of the winners.
Well, if you could forward to us, and I don't know if maybe to Mark, you could get some information as to how we might help and who we might reach out to on a statewide basis to help the effort too. I mean, we're thrilled and proud and that you've gotten to this stage. I agree with you. Who would think in little old West Warwick? But if we can do something to help push over the finish line, that'd be great.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And believe me, I will make use of every resource that's available to me to try to get us the win.
Okay.
Colin, I can't repeat what both of them said. So, I echo it, and thank you for everything you've done this year. I know it's been a difficult year for your department also. And next year, I think we should put an ordinance that you should propose your budget on St. Patrick's Day. But that's besides the point.
We got news of being a finalist the day after St. Patrick's Day, so that was pretty good. Thank you.
Any questions for Colin? Thank you, Colin. We'll move on to the fire department. Chief Varone, you're on deck.
Okay. Hello, everyone. And our budget represents it's kind of about a 2.68% increase from last year. Our job is fairly simple, and my job is fairly simple. It's to get the members, dedicated members of the West Warwick Fire Department, the tools, equipment, and training they need to protect life and property in the town. So we did receive a little bit of a reduction in almost 10%, a little over 10%, maybe 15% reduction in the hydrants from Kent County Water. So that is reflected in this budget. And we've had a lot of turnover. There is an increase in the overtime budget. We've been trending a little bit higher since that overtime had been increased. So that's almost half of that. The increase is from that overtime budget. So I think if everyone's had a chance to look at it, if anybody has any questions.
Questions for Chief Varone?
Chief, I have one question.
Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, I keep doing this to you, Mary Beth. You can go first.
That's all right. No, go ahead.
And this is minor, Chief. I'm just because I read through all your line items. Where it says traffic signs.
Right. So traffic.
What do you?
Yep.
No, go ahead.
All right. So those we do have members that go out and replace the traffic signs. They order them and go out and put them up on the poles. So that's
okay.
Pretty much to pay for those signs.
So when you say traffic signs, you're talking like stop
Street
signs,
signs.
Street, yeah, it's street signs. It's not the stop signs.
No, it's a street name signs, I believe. Is that correct,
Right.
Chief?
Okay.
That is
Yes.
correct. That is
Chief, I need
correct.
one on Cleveland and Phoenix. I probably shouldn't tell you that now, but a
Cleveland
Cleveland Street
Phoenix.
sign on Phoenix Avenue. Yes.
So that means we should give you a list of signs we want replaced, right?
Yes. Absolutely. If you need signs, if there's something missing, that is what that is for.
Where should those requests go, Chief?
Then go to the duty chief,
Okay.
the on-duty chief.
Thank you.
If you would like to give them to me, I will make sure they get where they belong.
Okay. You talk about overtime. It's my understanding, and we've talked about this in other meetings, that some of that overtime cost that we're bearing this year could be refunded. We could get relief money and use that to offset that. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we have already received 110,000. Part of that was overtime. Part of that is materials, PPE and other materials for the COVID response. We still that is so we received 110 out of about $150,000 that we put in for. We're going to, by the end of the year, have put in for about $380,000 worth of grant at a 75% recuperation.
And so the balance that we see as of, I guess this is a Kristen question, is that overtime line item reduced by what we've received, or is that not reflected yet?
What we receive goes in a revenue line because revenue has to be recognized as revenue and expense as expense.
Okay.
Any other questions for the chief? Hearing none. EMA, emergency management.
Yep. So the emergency management is level funded. We're a little over budget this year. I don't know if you've seen just looking for that. We're about 9 times over what our usual budget is. That's because we're kind of using that as a place to track all of the COVID expenses throughout the town. So we're looking just to maintain that level of funding for that.
That's to be expected.
Yeah.
Any questions for the chief on that? Hearing none. Police department.
Good evening. So essentially, the police department budget is as close to level funded as I could make it. I believe it's a 1.15% increase, most of which is contractual salaries. Just to highlight a couple of the key lines, in case they were questions, but higher class is significantly higher right now because we're paying an acting chief higher class pay in my absence to cover those daily operational duties. Again, similar to the fire department, our overtime budget is heightened by COVID, but more significantly, we're affected by vacancies right now, both in our dispatch and patrol. And COVID is affecting that. For example, I had requested 3 seats in the current police academy class, and due to COVID restrictions and class size, we reduced to 2. So we're running with that vacancy until I can hopefully get people into the July class, and we won't see them until graduating in December and see them in the late winter, early spring, where they can actually be on the road. Let's see. Sick vacation buyback, I increased a little bit, and I think part of that was due to COVID. Some more time was sold back. Reduces long-term liability. However, annually, that can sneak up on us. Let's see. Our training budget, it appears that it's not being spent. However, a lot of our training was postponed due to COVID. So as the restrictions have lessened, we've really ramped up our plans for spring to get back on target to be where we need to be for trainings that are required either by state law or accreditation standards or policy standards. So we're hoping to get caught up rather quickly in the spring. The only other thing to note was I moved the funding, the $60,000 for our police navigator, the social work clinician, and I put that in consulting services. So it's by itself for identification. And obviously we're going to continue to look for grant funding for that, which there's always talk that there's going to be some, but to actually get it locked in and awarded is still a challenge. But if we can reduce that by grant funding, that is our intention.
Questions for Chief Nutt?
Chief, I have a question.
Certainly.
I know we had talked, you and I had talked about this, I don't know, over the last 3 or 4 years or so, about ordering or looking into, I don't know the terminology for it, but the signs that we place on the side of the road to say, speed limit 40 miles an hour, or slow down, or COVID vaccine is being held today, things like that.
Right.
I'd like to order a few of them personally. I think that's something our town needs. I think can be used by every ward across the board. Is that something? I talked to Chief Levine, and got his impression of it, and he's also for it. And the only reason I'm bringing this up here, because what I thought about using is FEMA money from the 2010 floods. I don't know where we stand with that. If we have no money left, or minimal money left, I would not be opposed to putting this into the budget, understanding that it increases a little bit.
Right. So
I
those
don't wanna
are
miss out.
those are expensive. We could buy message boards that you could just put out there, and that's strictly what they serve. We have 2 now that are message boards and also radar trailers, so we can use them for speed enforcement or more education than enforcement. And those cost about $16,000 to $17,000 to have that set up with the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth subscriptions and such. I did buy one with part of a $43,000 COVID grant that we received last year, with the intent to use it for community notification, and it has been used in that way. So again, I would not say there's not a need for it, because if there were more out there, then we can address educational component of speed problems as they come in a quicker basis. But like you said, we can also use them for other community events, application periods, voting times and locations. So there's always plenty of uses for them. But that's a significant expense. So to me, that would be a capital item, whether it's reserve money or built back into a pending capital request.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? General government is next. Yes. General government.
So general government is going up about $800,000. A portion of that is the pension. That's about $410,000. And then we have $450,000 in fund balance for negotiations, and that's pretty much the biggest chunk of the increase in the general government department. We also did increase, I should mention, retirement severance payments for caution. We are going to go very far over in fiscal year 21. So if that trend continues into 22, we wanted to have some padding there. I don't want to say padding, but some extra funds to cover those expenses, because when police and fire retire, they're usually pretty hefty payouts.
Any questions for Kristen on that? Do we have a anticipation of, I know we try to guess on how many retirements we may have in each year, but do we have any anticipation of in 2022?
I've been made aware of 2021. I have not been made aware of any of the 2022 yet. But but I would say Chief Knott and Chief Barone could answer that better.
I mean, from the police, I know I'll have 4 in this fiscal year. Depending how collective bargaining looks, there may be a few more, but I think I am down to maybe 8 people that are eligible to go. None of them have indicated they will, but there's always that chance.
Thank you. Chief? Barone?
So we have 2 people in the fire department right now that are in the process of retiring. We know of 1 other retirement. We have probably around 6 other people that are right at that 30-year mark, very close to, so it could go at whenever they want.
Questions for Kristen? Thank you, Kristen. DPW, Department of Public Works. I don't see Don on here.
I thought I saw him earlier, but I'll give him a call back if you want to skip him and go back.
I'll skip him. I'll skip Parks and Rec. We'll go on to Capital.
So I sent out the updated capital on the 16th or the 17th. We have 20,000 in the police department for police radios, 121,000 in the fire department for Station 3 and 4 upgrades and the SCBA replacement, approximately 270,000 in DPW for a Mason dump truck and a full-size dump truck, and also 10,000 in town hall improvements and 15,000 in IT improvements. We can probably take it by department if they want to discuss and explain to you what their capital request. Starting with police. Or maybe we could jump to fire.
Yeah, Mark might be on the phone now. So
Yeah, that's what I think.
so, yeah, both stations 3 and 4 are in need of some substantial repairs. The buildings have not been had any upgrades in quite a while, and even just the bathrooms. At some point in the future, I'm sure the West Warwick Fire Department will have some female firefighters, and we should have, anticipate that and be looking at getting facilities that are suitable for that. In addition, we're looking to start saving money to buy SCBA's. Now, SCBA is a very intricate piece of equipment that the firefighter needs to know like the back of his hand. If we buy just a few every year, models change, the ergonomics change. So it's a good idea to save up and get a larger amount at one time, as opposed to buying piecemeal every couple of years or every year, buying a few every year. So that's the idea behind trying to save the 3 SCBA's each year. Any questions on that?
Mark, if you're back, if you just want to explain.
All right, police department. Message was left for Don, so hopefully I'll hear back from him momentarily. The police capital, I believe, I had to argue with myself and cut something. $20,000 remained for our annual communications upgrade, so we can keep on target with replacing our police emergency radios on a timely basis. So that's kind of an ongoing, almost 10-year plan to keep that going and keep our safety communication equipment as state of the art. The item that I cut was $60,000, which was slated for body worn cameras. I anticipate that that may be legislated upon us in fiscal 22. So in anticipation of that, I put it in. So if other funding becomes available, I'll be looking for that. Or if I need to look into some reserves and drug forfeiture money, I'll be doing that. But that's all I had for police capital on this year's slate.
Chief, I know I just mentioned, we talked when you were in the operating budget about those signs,
Yes.
and there would be a capital project. I can't think of anything negative regarding those. I think I'd like to add those into your capital. I think it serves so many purposes, and part of the reason is just information. It's just another tool. So it's almost having a person out there in different places throughout the town that we can kind of add to just what I had said before, not to be redundant, but just to give out, like, all right, this is going on at the library. This is happening at the Civic Center. Listen for a code red, taxes are due, all that kind of stuff. Vote for the budget, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I mean, I've never been in a position where I'd like to add something to the capital, but I don't know. I'm just addressing the council. I think this is extremely needed in the community. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
And again, from the police perspective, they'd be helpful, obviously, if we had more of the combination, but it's not required that we get the speed enforcement version. We could get the lesser expensive option that are just message boards. They don't necessarily have to be controlled by the police department. We have a few vehicles equipped with the towing capabilities, but I know we have multiple other things too. So that, that could be something that another department handles. But again, if we want to keep with the option to do speed enforcement education, then it's not a bad idea. But like I said, I can look as we get more guidance on what we can use some of this increased funding for, which we hope to get over the next week or so. Before we finalize our budget, I might be able to have some options on how to pay for that as opposed to attaching it to capital.
Okay.
Any other
I
questions?
agree with you, Jason, that they could serve a purpose, and there are definitely some valid uses for it. So something to certainly keep on the short list.
We have two now, correct?
I have two that are combo variable message boards and speed.
Tax collector software, is there anything in there? Nope. IT improvements? I will speak.
So-
Go ahead, Kristen.
I was just gonna say, we feel it's important to at least put something into IT improvements every year. There are things that come up where we need a new server or different suggestions from RCC to make our platform safer. We are constantly getting, attack attempts. And I just feel it's important to make sure that we're putting something into our infrastructure, our IT infrastructure yearly. It doesn't come close to what RCC suggests we do for improvements, but it's something.
I know our IT, we're always looking at our webpage, we're always looking at various different things. Our IT group, RCC, is that a year-to-year contract?
That was a 3-year bid. They bid and they got the bid for 3 years. And then I believe it would be year to year after that, or we could go out to bid again. I gotta go back and revisit that. I know it was for 3 years. And I think we are just about completing 2.
Any questions for Kristen on IT? Looks like Civic Center's next.
Actually, can Mark, you had 10,000 at town hall too? Or maybe we're skipping around.
Actually, I was trying to go straight down, but
Okay, because
yeah.
IT's at the bottom. Okay.
Actually, it's different on this form for some reason. Oh, I
So
see.
town hall improvements,
Go ahead.
we put 10,000 in there, just, you know, there's things that come up. And this is an old building, you know, a boiler could blow.
Yes,
You know,
okay.
obviously we could need the carpeting has needed to be replaced for a while upstairs. It's just good practice to have some kind of fund set aside for the building, for any kind of improvements that it needs.
And actually, David, I think that the town manager eliminated the civic center capital items.
Not necessarily eliminated, but it was
For this-
more based, so Lori could prioritize it, and as the facility performs fiscally and is doing well, then she can present a proposal to you folks in order of priority or emergency, whichever comes first, to tackle some of those items.
Right. But as presented, it's not in the budget at this point.
We also have DPW, which we're waiting on Don. Does anybody want to explain DPW?
We can hardly hear you, David. You kind of go in and out.
Oh, what's going on with this computer tonight?
Yep, now that's better.
We have DPW and Lori, if you want to explain what the emergency needs are prioritized, maybe you can explain to the council why we're waiting for Don if he comes on. You're on mute, Lori.
So, I mean, what's the worst that you can all say to me is no, so I kind of just put it all out there. I had gone to the trust, a couple of their meetings pre-COVID. They have this HSB, it's a pipe sensor. And at one point they did actually talk about that buildings, you know, throughout towns and cities where they were going to require it for insurance purposes. I have talked to Kenny Townsend a little bit here and there about it, and just the way that it's set up, it might be something that, you know, if the town were to ever move forward on it, that the motherboard would be able to be in either the civic center or the school, but it would cover all the sensors throughout. So, I mean, it definitely is something that can alleviate, you know, a pipe breaks, lots of money spending for damage. A generator is always something that I think could be useful for the civic center. You know, God forbid something bad ever happened in the town, this could be used as a shelter. I mean, there's locker rooms, there's showers, you know, there's a kitchen. Not to, I mean, it's a small kitchen, but I mean, it could feed some people. The bleachers, I always ask for the bleachers. They got taken out when the building was privatized. So the area that is above in the first section doesn't have any bleachers. I definitely think that, you know, it could be something that could attract maybe concerts or something when COVID is over. So I'll always ask for those. A scissor lift, change the light bulbs. I have to rent a lift every time a light bulb goes out. So that's always a good thing just to have. I mean, over the years, I mean, I probably have spent that amount of money. Hold on, I have to just look. The sun went away in my office now, so I have to like turn on my camera flashlight. A PA system in the field house, again, for bigger events. Dividers for the field house. I think that the dividers that are up now were probably here prior to me even hitting high school at West Warwick High School. Rubber mat padding for the ice rink. Again, that's something that's been here for a really long time. Is it essential at this point? No, but I mean, at some point it would be nice to have an upgrade on it. A booster water pump. The water, it doesn't, I mean, it runs, but it doesn't have that force that you would like it to have. And again, like, I mean, it runs and it's fine. And again, bathroom upgrades. I think at some point I will have to put in some sort of family bathroom in both buildings. So that's something that, you know, probably will just come out of my supplies and expenses at this point, because I think that's going to come sooner than later. But again, what's the worst that you can all say to me is no. And it just gives me something to work for. So, you know, eventually I'll be able to, you know, if we continue on the same path that we're on right now with the Civic Center, eventually, you know, the Civic Center will just never have to ask for capital and just be able to afford it all within its own little fund.
Any questions for Lori?
I can't hear you again.
How about now?
How about no?
I don't know what's going on.
Now I can hear you, but you have to be like really up close.
No, it's just it's my screen, I guess. Any questions for Lori? Any yays or nays for Lori?
I think I got all nays, which I'm okay with. Just gives me something else to work forward to.
All right, and I still don't see Don, so. We'll move on to Town Sergeant. He's all set. Town Clerk.
I'm basically levy funded. I mean, I'm not asking for anything. I don't have an election till next year in September. That's about it.
Any questions for Paula? Thank you, Paula. Board of Canvassers.
Same thing.
Any questions on Board of Canvassers? Probate.
Same thing, level funded.
Yeah. Town Council.
Same thing.
And last but not least, legal.
Legal, the only thing we
Legal, Mark.
changed. Yeah, the only thing we changed was labor specialist. We reduced because we will hopefully be not negotiating any contracts. So we expect that to be a lesser expense.
That concludes our budget session without Don. Unless somebody.
Council President?
Yes.
I don't know if you folks want to review it. I will take notes and get him questions, if that way he can answer them specifically, if you think that will be helpful, and I'll continue to check on them.
Anybody have any questions on DPW? I have more questions on the capital on DPW, but
I was in on that discussion, so I could probably help you with those if you wanted to go back to them.
I just want to see exactly what he needs and what he can go without, or if there's some way we can fund in other future ways or whatever it may be.
Right, so the two items that I did not cut were the small dump truck and the large dump truck. After going through what they had to experience during that first storm and the lack of equipment and the proposal to lease, I didn't want to cut their legs off on that recovery. So I left the two dump trucks in, and the other items on there were the 25-yard packer, which is, I guess, the correct word for a garbage truck, which I guess the ones we have are old and rusting, and they expect them to go out of service sooner than later. Again, we don't use those on a daily basis. I know they use them for bulk pickup and some other pickup type events. So we were going to kind of explore if there is such a thing as used Packard trucks, and see what those options are. They were looking for a more of an administrative type vehicle that they could use for the assistant director or the foreman to help carry crew around. That was also tentatively cut. And the last part was a 8x6 enclosed trailer to move some of their equipment around. And he was going to try to utilize some of this year's funding to get that in advance. So we withdrew that.
Mark, was that the trailer that he was looking for the mini excavator? Because I know there was an issue with that at some point in time, and I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, if that's been received.
Well, if it
I'll
was
have to double
enclosed,
check, but it's not an enclosed trailer. So
if it's enclosed, it's definitely not for the mini excavator.
So did we get the trailer for, because I was told we couldn't move it around because we didn't have a trailer, but I don't know if that's been rectified.
I'll double check. I thought I saw a trailer on my last
Okay.
tour down there.
Okay, all right. And you know, the garbage truck, I know he provided a narrative to us a while back. That's rude. Don provided a narrative a while back. And I know it's for bulk pickups and things like that, but I would think that, wouldn't it be more functional to buy smaller, if we're going to spend that kind of money, buy smaller dumps? I know it takes more, it might take more runs, but they would be more functional, I would think, year round. Instead of every other Saturday or at Christmas time when we do Christmas trees. And this does not suggest that we would actually lease. Mark, you and I sat at Tasca and had some conversations where there were some, they're on the master pricing agreement, and they actually have leasing options. So this is actually assuming that we would pay outright for it.
Correct.
Okay. Because I think there are some options. And I know that we have I think when we did our tour, we have 2 garbage trucks now, Packards, I guess, or Packers, whatever they're called. Could they be combined into one good healthy one, or can you buy pieces and parts to restore them? And I'm just asking that question. I don't know that.
Would not even try to answer that.
Okay, sorry.
Way out of my lane.
Fair enough.
Any other
Mark.
questions on that? Go ahead, Jeff.
I do. When are we going to be able to ask questions on the operating budget for DPW? Because we have one more meeting left, right?
We go straight to public
No.
hearings next.
Right.
Right.
All right, so I guess we ask him then.
Oh, you can ask now, but he's not.
Yeah. And Mark could
He's
get us
not
the
here.
answers, perhaps.
Yeah, but
right.
Mark said ask and he can get the answers.
I'm just kind of just curious if Don can explain $40,000 going from last year to this year from this current budget to next to the requested budget for $40,000 in overtime. Because I know he ran short-staffed. The department ran short-staffed for most of the year, but with a full complement of staff, I don't understand why we're asking for another $40,000 in OT.
You're referring to DPW?
I'm referring to DPW, correct?
So he did ask for 40,000. Mark, we reduced it by 20 to an increase of 20.
Right.
All right. I apologize. I'm going from the book, Kristen, and so some of those numbers have changed.
Yeah, so the document I sent on the 16th is the document with all of Mark's changes in it under the manager column.
Right, so the
Okay.
copy we have slightly updated, just so you're aware, fiscal 21, his overtime budget was 100,000. The actual this year through March 10th was 125,000. So he requested 140 and I reduced it with Kristen to 120.
Okay.
Again, like you had mentioned, hopefully with staff and proper planning, it'll be less. So we'll just be probably dealing hopefully with emergency situations, things that run long, and snow plows and sanding.
The other question I had was the rubbish contract. I know it's an increase of $40,000. Is that due to yard waste?
It was a 3% incremental increase was built into it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's the 3% increase.
That's all I have.
So and again, I'm looking at an older sheet, the preventative maintenance that was added at the bottom. We're talking about road bond for that, so that's,
Right, so his original
was
request
reduced
was 200,000 and we reduced it to 20,000 just so he can continue that
miscellaneous something.
process.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, David, I would, I don't know where it should go. I mentioned this to Mark earlier. We've had ongoing conversations with Kent County Water, but we do want to make sure that we do have $1,500 for the police memorial in our budget. We did say we would do that. They will continue to try to raise funds if they can, and we'll always try to look for somebody to foot that bill, but the irrigation at the fire memorial is paid for through, because it's right at the firehouse. So I'm not sure where that would go. I guess I would ask Kristen. I mean, but even if it had to be on the town council, wherever it needs to be, as long as we can have a separate line item for that. Just so I don't forget, because by the time we get to the public hearing, I'll probably forget.
Okay, I'll make note of that. We would have to, if it needs to be added to a line, we can take a vote on either the 30th or the 6th to do
Right.
that.
Yep, but it's just a placeholder if we could.
Yep.
Thank you.
6, correct? Can you hear me?
Barely.
How about now?
Yes.
Our two public sessions are March 30th and April 6th, correct?
Correct.
Just for the public to know, and that's their time to speak and ask questions. And then from there, hopefully, also, I do want to get with the Charter Review Committee and see how they're making out, if we're going to have any questions on the ballot for the all-day referendum. So that's something we need to work on. Any other comments from the council? Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye.